Well, let's bring in tonight's panel, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Sky News host James Macpherson and media writer at The Australian, Sophie Ellsworth. James, why don't we start with you? What did you make of that very clear attempt by some in the media to conflate the issue where there's neo-Nazis hijacking an event, conflate that with the issue of the protesters, the female activist protesters?
Well, I think you've summed it up perfectly. It was a deliberate attempt to conflate the two, when clearly there's no correlation between the two. The language used is very interesting. These are not women advocating for women's rights. They're anti-trans protesters. And whenever the media coverage did mention women's rights, which is what they were there to advocate for, they prefaced it with so-called women's rights. So I think to any fair-minded person viewing this coverage, it was pretty clear that there was a deliberate attempt from media and journalists to put these ladies together with Nazis and thereby diminish everything that they were saying about the important issue of women's rights.
Very well said. Sophie, there are very few things in this world worse than Nazis. What did you make of that attempt to conflate those two issues?
There's a couple of things going on here, Jack. Obviously, there were those people that had the Nazi salute. It was disgraceful. No one's saying that is okay. I haven't heard anyone saying that's acceptable. But these were a group of protesters marching for female rights. But the media has portrayed them as anti-trans activists. They've taken the bait and said they're anti-trans. I think that is wrong. I think that wasn't their cause. But what we've seen down here in the media is effectively the Victorian Liberal Party now all fighting within themselves over this issue, rather than focusing on the issue of Dan Andrews' corruption and spending and so forth. They're now fighting over expelling Moira Deeming and digging up dirt files on her, which is having repercussions for them because other issues have come out with other MPs in their party. So I think the whole thing is a mess. I think the media handled it very poorly. And mind you, the ABC's coverage of it on Saturday when the protest took place, I could not find a story on their website, and their 7 p.m. news bulletin did not cover the protest. I looked for stories on this. It wasn't until Dan Andrews came out and condemned the Nazi salute that all the media, a large amount of the media, jumped on this. So the media took the bait, and I think it wasn't handled well.
Yeah, and James, Sophie raises a good point about the Liberal Party in Victoria being distracted. I mean, there is a rule before you have a press conference. You have to know the facts.
Yeah.
It makes them look unprofessional. It makes them look like they aren't ready to govern.
Worse than unprofessional, it makes them look completely reactionary. It makes them look like they are jumping to the tune of Daniel Andrews. Daniel Andrews makes a statement and immediately the Liberals are thrown into chaos. They're reacting left, right and centre. And they're supposed to be a credible alternative government. They're not demonstrating that at all. How can they be trusted to govern when they are so patently reactive?